Thank you so much for coming to the last keynote of our Artificial Intelligence Day. We're going to have right now a keynote by Shivani Poddar, Senior Engineering Lead at Google DeepMind. Please give her a huge round of applause.
Thank you, and hello everyone. My name is Shivani Poddar. I work at Google. The presentation that you're going to see here today is going to be my personal take on the AI-driven engineer. I've worked at several different companies over my over a decade-long career in AI. So this talk is going to be an amalgamation of my experience working in AI in this space for all of this while. Hopefully you guys are not too tired. I know this is the last keynote, so hopefully everyone's gotten some coffees in your system. If not, we'll try to make it interactive. So as much as this is about me sharing what my learnings are, I'd also love to hear from you guys over the course of the next 30-ish minutes about what you think about the state of AI. And we're going to get a chance to do that in my presentation. So first off, how many of you have heard about LLMs? I thought so. The number of hands that went up, which is the 100% of you have heard about LLMs, kind of shows us the state of the world today, right? This hit home for me a few weeks ago. I was at the TED AI hackathon in San Francisco, and at this hackathon, there were 70 participants and 30 projects. A lot of that ended up becoming full-fledged companies, all of which launched over a weekend. This is over 100 days worth of work, all done in a weekend. So AI is here, and the world of technology is quickly evolving. And today I want to talk to you about how can we leverage this super rapidly evolving work of technology to become the best engineers that we can, create the best technology that we can. In the next 15-20 minutes, you're going to learn the following 3 things. Remember these because we will come back to them and I'll make sure that everyone's following along. How to use AI as your superpower. Each one of you here has a unique skill set that you've curated. How might you use AI to actually supercharge the skill set you already have? And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I have a feeling that all of you are doing this in a pretty good way already. The second thing you're going to learn is how to grow new superpowers with AI. This one's the one that I'm most excited about, actually. The reason being that I've been in AI when software engineering was really hard, and so I now know how much more easier it is to grow new superpowers and skill sets with software engineering and the technologies that exist today. So we will spend some time here. And the third thing I want you to take away is how to build AI for tomorrow. This sounds a little bit intimidating, but stay with me, we'll get there. So, how to use AI, how to grow AI to leverage and upskill yourself, and how to build for AI once you've upskilled yourself and supercharged your existing engineering skill set. So before we get there, why do we even need this talk right now? I want to ask you 2 questions. How many of you have spent hours and hours debugging a code only to find a missing semicolon or a stupid formatting issue or something of that sort? Everyone. Isn't that the most annoying thing of software development? And then how many of you realized that you needed to learn this new framework or language, say Python or C++ for a project, to only realize that what you wanted to build could have been built in 15-20 minutes instead of the hours it took you had you known the language already? This one's big for me, and we're going to see how. So traditional software development has been slow. It has been slow and it has been very redundant. You have to keep writing the same code over and over again. I laugh every time I try to make an application because I have to code up the same login screen, the same sign up screen, and the same things that I had to do for like 10 other projects before that. So this is what's really the pain point, is two big things. One is boilerplate debugging documentation hell. It takes us so many cycles, and it's so slow to build up these things, which can be so quick with AI. And the second is steeper learning curves. It takes us way long to learn something from scratch than it does if we have something and we just have to interact with it a little bit. And so that's where modern technology can help us. I want to introduce this framework with you today. I am calling it AGI. It is not artificial general intelligence. AGI is only so that you can remember this as a takeaway when you leave today. It stands for augment, grow, and innovate. Let's see what this means. Let's first talk about augmentation. Augment yourself and using AI as your superpower. Broadly, approaches that you may use fall into two categories: being proactive and reactive. Proactively leverage AI to help you with things like creating bootstrap templates. If you're creating an app to sign up, you might just use AI to actually create the first boilerplate code for that app instead of starting from scratch. Using code completion to make sure that if it's a language you're not super proficient in, you can actually get it done much faster than not. Using AI for code correction, this one is huge for me. It used to take me sending out multiple reviews to a lot of colleagues to make sure the code I have is correct, and now AI can do it super quickly. So that's the proactive piece. The second aspect where we've been leveraging AI, which makes people extremely efficient, is reactive AI. How can you use AI for things like documentation and finding out more about things that you don't know of is the more reactive part of AI. Research has shown that using AI in the best ways to augment yourself saves you about 30% of your time that you would otherwise spend in actually building a project. I don't want to spend too much time here because I know that a lot of you are already using AI in many interesting ways. And I was talking to a few people here who told me how they use AI for content creation, to make sure some of the multimodal things that they want to do are done super quickly. So this is going to be super short. I am curious though, how many of you use AI for every day in your coding jobs? Are there any other things that you use AI for instead of these? There's a hand there. Do you use AI for any of the other things than this? What kind of problems? Yeah, so great. Yeah, so I think the point he's making is that, hey, I actually use AI beyond just software engineering to solve any or most problems I have, which is a great point. And I think that goes to saying that augmenting ourselves is not just in our day-to-day job, but every other aspect as well. So now that you've augmented what you already know with AI, next step is to grow your skill set and learn something that you've never previously known with AI. I don't know if any of you have actually prototyped in new languages that you never knew before, or tried to build something from scratch with any of the co-pilots. Fewer. So this is super interesting, right? Like maybe 10 or 20% of you guys have done this. I kind of want to brainstorm this one idea with you. Like, what if we were to use AI to actually create something new from scratch? I personally have been a backend engineer in my career. I don't have much experience with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So I kind of want to use that as an example to bootstrap a new app idea. First off, I could use AI to bootstrap ideas, but in this case, I have a pretty good sense of what I want to build. Say I want to build an app called Will I Get This Job? This is very much resonant with the career fair growing out there. I'm sure a lot of you are students applying for jobs, looking for internships, and you probably do that with a resume in hand. You have a job description, you read it, and there's a mental math that goes in, right, which says, will I actually get this job? And so why not we build an AI app that looks at your resume, scans it, compares it with the job posting, and says whether or not you're likely to get that job. Everyone on board? Yes. 3 steps to prompt tuning this new technology. First, what we talked about, the boilerplate iterations. My prompt's going to be something like this. Make an app that reads a job posting and scores the likelihood of me getting the job based on my resume. Design the front end that I can run using JavaScript. I would have demoed this app in real time, but we're going to fast forward it because of the lack of time and maybe like the juggling of tech here. But I inputted this in your favorite chatbot. And if you have your phones on here with ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, or any of your favorite engines, follow along, see what you get as you put these prompts in. So the first idea is just bootstrap your idea, have a bare bones boilerplate prompt that can just get your idea in a shape and form that any model can understand. This is what I get. Thoughts about this? My first reaction when I looked at this and I was like, hey, if a junior engineer was to join my team and I gave them this prompt and this is what I got back, I would like, wait, do you even know JavaScript? And so point being that boilerplate iterations are great, but what AI really needs is feature refinement and much more fine-grained product understanding of what you want done with proper prompt fine-tuning of what you want to be achieved with your product. So say I have this, my next step is to do feature refinement within the prompt that I just had so that I actually get something which is closer to what I like. So I say, okay, make it sleeker looking for an iOS app, allow for job posting links because who wants to paste a job description, and look it up from the internet, like look up the job link that I post from the internet. This is what I get. Does it look better already? A little bit? Some people are nodding, some are like, no, it's as trashy as the last one. The last step, which is super important, is you may have to do many iterations like this, right? And while I'm doing this, something that we haven't discussed is there's a JavaScript code that AI is producing at every step, which I go in and I put in a visualization framework like a JS Fiddle or something else on the internet to actually get from that code that AI is producing to this mock-up that you see right here. This is also a very well-functioning code. So the next thing I want to do once I've done my feature refinement is to actually test this for correctness. When I did that, I realized that actually if you really look at it, the prompt boxes are shaky, like they're too big. That's not how an actual app works. So I say, okay, remove, make sure the input boxes are well formatted, add a string match score to make sure that you actually tell me the likelihood of getting this job, and make, and a couple of more things that I want done in order to have AI actually be what I want my product to do. Here's what I get. Let's play this. So with the JavaScript code that I had, I then am able to actually go somewhere, find a job posting. I created a mock job. I paste this job posting here. I go paste this resume. As you can see, it's a mock resume. I go and paste this resume in there, and then I say fetch job and get score. And as you can see, it was a 1.5% match. So I now have this app working in JS Fiddle. This resume probably won't get this job, but you know how overarchingly I, as somebody who did not know JavaScript, or how to actually, look up URLs or parse documents in JavaScript was actually able to bootstrap this code pretty quickly in 15 minutes. Overall, 15 minutes to go from conception to execution, while before this, it would have taken me many, many hours to get from point A to point B. When you actually look at the code, it has aspects like URL lookup, complex document parsing, because once you look up the job posting, you have to parse the job posting. Jacquard scoring, because once you have documents from one place, you want to match it to the resume that you have in the second place. And then some sort of normalization logic to actually give somebody a probability to know whether or not they'll get the job. So we went in a very short span from A to B to make sure that me, as somebody who did not know this language, was able to grow my skill set to be better at learning a new language. Everyone with me so far? So we've now covered how can we augment the skills we already know with the technologies of today. We've also seen a little bit on how can we grow our existing skill set to actually adapt skill sets which we've never had. The last piece I want to talk to you about is innovating. Finally, now that you've used AI for a bunch of these things, you might come back and you're like, hey, actually, AI is great, but it's not working for me for my use case. One example that I was discussing with somebody out there was, what if you wanted to actually parse these resumes in Portuguese? Do you guys have resumes in Portuguese? Is that a thing? Right? And somebody was telling me, hey, actually Brazilian Portuguese is very different than Portuguese from Portugal. And so the model might actually not work for parsing Portuguese resumes. What do you do then? It's important to know that while AI is incredible, it may not be perfect. You, with your unique experience or your unique way of creating applications, will discover gaps. It might feel tempting to wait for the technology to catch up to cover these gaps for you. You might want to say, hey, at some point, these models will be good enough to catch the nuances of my local language, or the knowledge base that I want to work with, or the context that I have. But I want to empower you and walk you through a couple of ways in actually building these models to be the models that can work well for you, for your use case, for your language, and for your locale. Each iteration that we will talk about will make sure that you learn something new. It will also give you a unique opportunity to reflect on unknown gaps that these model makers may not have considered. So fine-tuning is one such way. What you could do is take a model that already exists, create data sets which are, say, if we take the example we were just talking about, data sets which talk about parsing Portuguese resumes to match with Portuguese job postings to actually figure out how might you go ahead and fine-tune these models. I want to give you a snapshot at what fine-tuning looks like. We won't go in very much detail here, but this will help you understand the jargon as you read it. So large models out there, and I think Rohit in the last talk covered this, so this is perfect because we're kind of continuing from where he left. Large models are a bunch of layers. These layers are trained on the internet. The internet will have 80% English, and I'm making these numbers up, right? But majority of the data on the internet is the English language. They will have some proportion of all other languages, but they might have very little Portuguese from Portugal or Hindi from where I am in India. And so the source data sets will end up creating a source model, which is the large models you see out there. When you encounter these models and you want to make them work for your use case, you could consider doing something like fine-tuning. What fine-tuning says is that, hey, I actually want to create an app that can read Portuguese resumes. So I'm going to curate a source target data set, which is going to be Portuguese. I don't really want to spend millions of dollars to train this whole thing. So I'm just going to copy most of the weights that are open sourced or use an API that already exists and train this last layer, which will help my model learn my target data set a little bit better. So fine tuning lets you play around with the cost you want to spend, with the amount of data you are able to have, to train a model that can actually work for your specific use case, language, or even task that you have. Everyone on board? So you could do something like this, right? And one might say, hey, is actually fine-tuning enough? Like, can I now have a Portuguese reading resume app at my hands? I want to say it sounds tempting, but no. Like, consider system development when you're talking about AI holistically. What that means is, think about 3 big steps when you're building any application in AI. Think about building and pre-processing your specific data set. Usually considering things like, what's the diversity of my data set? Are all software engineering, system design, all kinds of roles that I want to have resumes for covered in this data set? Is the data set big enough to actually give me generalizability if 100 people were to come and apply through my app? So think about all the ways in which you want to use your system and make sure the data set or the knowledge bases you're building actually represents that. Once you have this, then you can go ahead and either fine-tune your own model. I know Rohit talked about having an OSS model with weights, so you could do that. Or you could actually use a lot of APIs out there, which help you just fine-tune the model that they provide with the data set that you create. And once you have this fine-tuned model, you can say, I'm ready to go, but you're going to have to wait and evaluate. Make sure that the model you have actually works in the way that you want it to work. So what does that mean? It means that if I'm actually building an app which says, you will get this job with this resume, I want to make sure that the claim I'm making is actually true. So have human evaluators, for example, look at your system, look at the examples you have to see what is your accuracy, how many percentage of times that the app predicts that somebody will get the job, do they actually get the job? If this is less than what you would like in your product to be the experience, then go back, start again, and do this process all over again. Hopefully this isn't super intimidating and made you feel empowered. But I want to leave you with this. Recognize that Gen AI, this whole space, is still very new, and there is room for disruption. So if you're somebody who's super interested in using it to grow your skill sets, to build new technology, to build disruptive technology, make sure you keep a tab in ongoing research. There's a lot of different forums where you can actually see what new models are coming out, what are the kind of ways people are using it. And make sure you try these models and actually try different types of models for different use cases. It's also very interesting because when you try different models, even though they're doing the same thing, they end up working very differently depending on the use case that you have. So this is my time. Keep on building. Thank you. And if you're a student, a startup, or anybody else who's interested in working on this space, this is my LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Okay, so we have some time for some Q&A. Does anyone have any questions?
I just wanted to talk about how I use AI a lot, and obviously there's a lot of benefits to it. But are there any things you might be worried about that we could look out for in regards to maybe laziness or a lack of critical thinking in some scenarios where instead of thinking of our own ideas, you just ask the AI to think of ideas for you?
Great question. So what's your name?
Michael.
Michael. So Michael says, hey, I use AI a lot, but what if I got lazy or didn't have enough critical thinking? Are you worried about scenarios where there may be some of these ways when people are talking to AI or using AI in their day-to-day? I think it's definitely a reality, as it is with any other technology, right? When people post on social media, you can see that there are people who will be very thoughtful about the posts they make, and then there are people who just send anything. So I think the pros and cons of the way that you choose to use AI is something that can be lazy, but can also be thoughtful. So it's just something where you choose the way you engage. It's always important to know that these technologies are still not fully mature. And so if you end up not having critical thinking, your work might end up having factuality errors or may not be as good as you want it to be. But yeah, good point.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Hi. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering if you have used and if you recommend any like pre-built tool to use AI as a developer. So I'm thinking about Copilot. I know there are a few of them. I just want to know your thoughts.
I think it's very variable. Again, obviously, within Google, we use anything Gemini, Copilot, and so that's something that I'm biased against. But I would recommend trying a few, and it would depend on how much budget you have. Some of these tools are paid, some of these tools are free. So you might want to try a few and see what actually works for your use case. I have seen, and I was, I think, talking to somebody here as well, the tools work very differently for the kind of work that you want to do. So maybe you like, maybe you want a coding copilot, or maybe you want a content creation copilot. Like the tools will work very differently based on your use case. So I would say try and then use it as a developer.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have any more questions?
Hello, thank you at first. And I would like to ask, with more and more developers using LLMs, there may be, I think, a shortage of information that was processed in the later ways. So by Stack Overflow, by investigating, by trying to understand the deeper problem. Do you consider that the information in the future will be more based in AI, so that will fit the AI itself and generate something that lacks the foundational knowledge of the problems? And how do you believe organizations and persons will try to solve that problem?
Yeah, what's your name?
Axel.
Axel, that's a great question. The reason I like this question is for two parts. One, what Axel is saying is that, hey, as more and more developers are using AI, the data that gets created in the internet now is created by AI. So as the world progresses and AI is the one creating this data, would we lack foundational data to actually create future models? I think truly the currency of the future will be data. And not just data which is present in bulk, but data which is hard to come around. And that is things like domain knowledge, expert information, knowledge from low resource languages, low resource cultures. And what that means is knowledge that's not abundantly present on the internet as it is. And so the next wave of companies that might come about are definitely ones that will focus on getting this data available through humans. So human created data will definitely be an asset that we will have to continuously make sure that is available for these models to be trained.
So trying to use the foundational knowledge again to foster the LLM responses.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think also another interesting thing that is happening across the industry is this watermarking of AI generated, so that you're able to tell that, hey, this is human generated and this is AI generated, and then use the information you see in a better way and not accidentally pollute your models by using data that was actually created by the models in the first place.
Thank you.
Are there, okay.
Hello, amigo. First, I wanted to congratulate you on your presentation. It was very informative. My question is, with these AI models, a lot of the times in more complex projects, you have to have a more critical understanding of the issue, and sometimes if you don't have that knowledge, you might complicate more of your life if you're using these AIs.
Yes.
And you don't really understand the critical thinking. My question is, in your personal experience, in the real job market, how often are these AIs useful to making code in more complex projects?
That's
Thank
a
you.
great question, Miguel. So Miguel's question is like, hey, in your real world experience, is AI also useful in very complex coding scenarios? Because in your experience, it's useful in easier places, but your expertise is needed for the more complex tasks. I tend to agree. I think that's why I was thoughtful in choosing the word augment your skill set, not replace yourself, is because I do believe that leveraging AI for the more mundane tasks of your day to day leaves you some free time to actually focus on the more creative or the more tough problems. And so the way I personally would use AI is that if I'm prototyping an application, like I showed you guys, I would write a boilerplate code with AI, but then I would actually sit with that code to add things to that code myself, because you guys saw how good AI was, and it was great, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be. So in order to bridge that gap, your expertise is going to be crucial, which is why I think, to your question earlier, not being lazy about the way you interact with AI, but being very critical, taking what you have, but really building on top of it is going to be essential if you want to become somebody who actually has the right skill set for industry.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Any more questions?
Hello, so my name is Klidi. Thank you for your presentation. I have one question. Based on the fact that you have a developer background, what's your opinion about using AI for critical systems?
What kind of critical systems?
Like developer systems for healthcare and airplanes or this kind of markets?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is, hey, what about using AI in critical systems, like systems with high risk in if they fail, right? I think the way that I think about it is a trade-off between reliability and ability to have humans in the loop. And so what I mean by that is we should use AI very thoughtfully in critical systems. Healthcare, for example, is a very good use case for that. Today, if you look at the usage of AI in healthcare, it's more assistive than replacing a doctor physician. What that means is that if I go to a doctor's office, today they spend hours taking notes while they're talking to me. They may be distracted, they may actually make mistakes because they're multitasking. So there's a lot of room where AI can actually come in and help them take notes so that information is captured, no harm done, and even if there are errors, they are rectifiable because there's a human in the loop. The physician will go back, check the transcript, and make sure they fix anything which is does not look right. And so that's my perspective on having AI in critical systems, is be aware of the reliability or the accuracy of the system you're building. This is where, if you guys remember, the evaluate step is extremely important. As you're building a technology, make sure you know what the boundaries are, how good it is, but also how bad it is. And then design the system overall in a way where if there needs to be a human in the loop to make sure AI is assistive, you design for a human to be in the loop. But that's the holistic kind of system thinking we need for critical use cases. It's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm afraid we don't have time for any more questions. However, I would invite any of you that want to keep on talking with Shivani to move on to the second stage. First of all, please give a huge round of applause for her amazing presentation. Thank you, Shivani.
Thank you.
Now we're going to sort this session's winner. So the winner is Manuel. It's you? You sure? Okay, come on up. Congratulations.